Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to our podcast. This is the fifth episode. Today we'll be covering mostly the NBA draft, and before that, we'll talk a little bit about some trades that have an impact, or had an impact rather, on the draft. So, without further ado, I'll hand things off to Jeffrey to start talking about the trades.
So right when trades were available, we got the news that Chris Paul traded the Phoenix Suns. I love this move for both organizations. We all know Chris Paul stint in Oklahoma City was going to be very, very short, and it was. But he did great things for the franchise when he was there. And plus, he got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who's really ready to step up and be that guy, be the starting point guard for them. And plus, they got a bunch of assets in return. Overall, good trade for the Thunder, and also a good trade for the Suns. I think both teams won and got what they needed. The Suns now have a piece. They have a leader. They have someone who can give them a direction. Because they haven't had the best front office and the best coaching, and they're starting to mold their identity. And I think Chris Paul finally puts them in playoff contention. And I think this will make Devin Booker happy and make him stay. Chris Paul is kind of out of the age range of the Phoenix Suns, and it's more of a short-term project. But I think it keeps Devin Booker happy and makes him stay, and that's ultimately like what you need to do as a franchise is keep your best player as long as you can, especially Phoenix Suns, because a player like Devin Booker comes around maybe once every 20 years for them. Um, and also Chris Paul will put them in the playoffs. And I think if they get past the first round, they will exceed expectations. I don't see him being some Western Conference powerhouse, but also I think Chris Paul will, or like the players like Devin Booker, Cameron Johnson, DeAndre Ayton, uh, Mikal Bridges, or maybe it's the other Bridges. I'm not sure. Um, those players are going to thrive under Chris Paul, and he's going to give them a identity, and he's going to lead them to win basketball games. So I think it's a very good move by the Phoenix Suns. Once again, it's more of a short-term project, but the long-term effects are going to be in Phoenix for a long time.
Right. And I think you're absolutely correct. I think Devin Booker actually was kind of vocal and had a big part in getting Chris Paul. He wanted the organization to get him a point guard because, as good as he is, he's not a point guard. Um, and like you said, I don't know if it's necessarily about keeping him because he just signed a 5-year extension this last season, but it's about keeping him happy. So when his contract finally does roll around, because that day will come eventually, he's like, okay, this organization wants to keep me happy. I can get what I want here, and we have potential to win, if they haven't won by then. So I mean, you got to keep your stars happy because we've seen how easy it is for players to force trades.
Hmm.
Devin
Going
Booker,
on what Jeff said about Chris Paul being out of the age group, might I say, is I think that's a great idea because they need a veteran there that they can actually look up to. I'm pretty sure their oldest player they've had for a while is Aaron Baines, and that's not really some guy you can look up to on your team to be like, hey, show us how to win.
right? I think the best he's done is in Boston, maybe, and they didn't necessarily. I mean, Chris Paul hasn't been the best winner in terms of like performing in the playoffs,
Hmm.
but he did make the conference finals, or was it the conference finals with the Rockets
Yes,
2 years ago? Yeah, and then he went
when he got
down. They would
injured.
have won
Yep.
otherwise. They would have gone to the championship and probably won. So honestly, I think that this was a great move in terms of getting some veteran actual leadership in the locker room. Like Cody said, Aaron Baines isn't that guy. So
Right. And like I really hit on the points of veteran really and like of his importance of being a veteran, but he's also a really damn good basketball player. Like he can put up all-star type numbers next year for the Phoenix Suns. So like
He's all right with it.
they got a really good situation there in Phoenix. Um I don't think he'll make the All-Star team mainly because there's so many good guards this year. So many good guards in the West this year. I don't know if he could really get to the All-Star level. I mean, like he'll be at All-Star level, but being inducted into the All-Star game, it's a different story. There's so many good guards out there. Um,
hmm
but all in all, I think the Phoenix Suns are gonna fall between like the 6 and 8 seed. I think that's where they'll land. And I think they have the offensive power to knock down a powerhouse team. Uh, the defensive side is going to be an issue. I mean, Chris Paul is a good defender, and that's really about it. You got Bridges; he's a good defender, but they didn't really improve on defense that much
hmm
because there's only so much you can do on defense when you're 6 feet tall.
right.
So like, but I do think they have enough offense in the league to compete with any team. But it's the defensive end that they need to work on. DeAndre Ayton needs to work on his defense. Um, Devin Booker can work on his defense, and I think now that they have a chance, the first time in a long time, to make the playoffs and be competitive. I think because every game matters and every game means so much, and they learned about that like in the bubble. If they won 2 more games before it shut down, they would have made the playoffs and within the play-in tournament. So I think now they have hope and they have a chance to make the playoffs. I think the defensive responsibilities is going to pick up for each player on that team.
I agree, and I think the biggest player that needs to pick up their defensive kind of ability is DeAndre Ayton. He's got the most potential to be a great defender. Like, Devin Booker's not ridiculously athletic. He's just an extremely skilled scorer. Whereas DeAndre Ayton is a 7-foot plus big man
Swole.
with a long wingspan, and he's not slow necessarily. So I don't really see any reason why he shouldn't be, a good defender, but he's just hasn't been yet at the NBA level. So I think that if we see him pick it up, and maybe they need to bring in kind of Aaron Baines is good, but maybe they need to bring in a veteran big man or get Ayton working with a defensive, big man coach. But
Right.
I think it's more about heart with him than anything. You gotta want to try. You can know as much as you want about rotations, but you gotta get in there and do it.
Right, and Chris Paul, he brings the best out of his big men, dating back to the Pelican days. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
David West, back when he played, he was an All-Star, I believe, on that Pelicans team.
I think
And
so.
watching Chris Paul highlights, all of his assists, all of David West's rotations were based off like where Chris Paul is on the floor, and then you see him with the Clippers. DeAndre Jordan was an All-Star next to him. After Chris Paul left, DeAndre Jordan hasn't really done much with his career. He's still a valuable player, but like he's not the All-Star level that Chris Paul emerged him to be. And then when he went to the Rockets, we witnessed Clint Capella emerge from like G League or like bench player to starting center for that team.
Mm-hmm.
And then now with the Thunder, I don't even know much about Steven Adams. I don't know what he really did with him, but I
Steven
think he'll bring the
Adams,
best out of DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, ultimately, I think that Chris Paul makes it easy for his big men, and that's what's important. And I think that DeAndre Ayton will have to work as hard to get his buckets, and maybe he'll have more energy to play defense. So only time will tell. So the next trade that we got to talk about is Drew Holiday. We talked about him last time. He went to the Bucks, and I think I mentioned that maybe they should try to do that. Or we saw that it was a thing that could happen. So he got traded for Eric Bledsoe, and I'm not sure what else was actually part of that trade. Jeff, do you know?
It was Eric Bledsoe, George Hill.
Okay.
And I think another player was sent over to the Bucks, but I don't think.
Am I wrong? Were they the ones who traded a lot of picks? The Bucks?
Yeah, no, yeah, they traded a ton of.
Yeah,
picks,
they traded 3 picks and then a swap potential on 2 of them, I believe.
I think it was
after that.
It might have been on 1. I don't know. I know they're all protected picks, but they're lightly protected. So I think they were like top 3 protected.
Yeah, so basically they took a gamble there on Drew Holiday and said, hopefully Giannis leaves. And if Giannis leaves, we probably just made the best trade in NBA history because we're going to have some top picks for the next 3-4 years.
I think the best trade in NBA history
but-
was the Lakers trading Vlade Divac for Kobe Bryant, but whatever.
Okay, but
A guy who helped them win 5 championships. But it's
Alright,
all
so
it's
all
all
the
good.
Celtics
So
trade,
hold on. So I have the trade here. It was Drew Bledsoe for Eric Bledsoe and George Hill plus 3 first-round picks according to Shams. There will also be pick swaps involved per Woj. So it doesn't say who the swaps are, but who gets better, who gets worse.
I feel like it would go into the Pelicans' favor. Like they have.
I do too.
Like
I think they had the leverage.
Right, I think they have the option to swap it.
Yeah.
I think that's how that works. But
And then in a separate trade, they got Bogdan Bogdanovic in a sign-and trade with the Kings, and the Bucks sent Dante DiVincenzo, DJ Wilson, Ersan Ilyasova. So
didn't that trade not happen though? I could have sworn that he wasn't willing to actually sign and be traded there. I thought I read an article about that.
I don't know. This is on NBA.com.
I
Oh,
have
okay, so
seen
This was on
that.
NBA.com 2 days ago.
I
at
don't know if
10:25
he
a.m.
really has a choice. I don't like why. Like, what choice does he really have? Unless
No,
he has
I
a no
think he's a
trade
restricted
clause.
free agent. Pretty sure he's a restricted
Oh,
free
is
agent.
he
isn't
restricted? Alright, then he.
Yeah, because
he kinda
he's
has to.
28, but I think he's on his like first contract in the league. I think he's restricted,
So,
Oh,
but I'm not
alright.
sure.
but anyways,
No, he doesn't have much of a choice then.
But-
22 hours ago there was an article that still talks about Bogdanovich going to the Pelicans.
So, worst case scenario, even if Giannis does leave, they still have a playoff team, in my opinion. Drew Holiday,
Yeah.
Chris Middleton, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Brook Lopez,
Mhm.
whoever they slide in at the 4. Like, I think they'll still be a competitive team. Obviously not for a championship, but I don't think like if they want to blow it up, then they can. But if they don't, those draft picks that they traded, I don't think they'll be as valuable as everyone's predicting they will be. Because like Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, like that's an all-star backcourt.
Mhm.
Like that's still an all-star backcourt. So I think that it's less risky than appears to be. But I mean, I think this is a risk that they had to take, and I think Giannis is not happy with this decision to trade for these players, and it's really in Drew Holiday's hands if Giannis stays or not. I mean, that's a big. I mean, that's a lot of pressure for Drew Holiday, but it's kind of the situation that that he's in, and when he signed up for it, agreed,
Mhm.
to get traded to the out of the Bucks. I think that's he realized like I need to perform at an all-star level and make it to the finals at least for Giannis to stay. So it's definitely a risky trade, but it's one that they needed to make. And for the Pelicans side, I mean, it was time to move on from Drew Holiday. I mean, they're in full rebuild right now, and they got a good young core, and they just added some good pieces. Well, good draft picks per se. I don't know where Bledsoe and George Hill fit in the long-term plans.
Right. I mean, as we've
but-
seen, draft picks can mean a lot even if they're late, because we watched a few really good guys slide pretty far in this draft. So I think it was a good move by the Bucks and the Pelicans. Really, the Bucks are trying to keep their star player, and the Pelicans are trying to continue their rebuild.
I haven't seen any major one-side trades lately, or this year at least, except maybe the Danny Green ones.
I think
where
the
I
Rockets
feel
just
like
made a
any
pretty
team that's
one-sided
taking
trade.
on any team that's taking on Danny Green, I feel like is losing out. But
I think the Rockets and the Trailblazers just kind of, I mean, it's not necessarily one-sided, but it's two teams that look like they're going in completely different directions. The Trailblazers traded 2 first-round
Trevor
picks and
Ariza.
Trevor Ariza for Robert Covington. So the Trailblazers are obviously trying to win now with CJ McCollum, presumably, and Damian Lillard. Whereas it looks almost like the Rockets are investing in picks rather than players, because Trevor Ariza played for them, but he's not what he was then.
no.
Obviously we've heard the rumors about James Harden.
Well, the
maybe
Rockets
around
traded
Brooklyn.
that- But the Rockets traded that pick to the Pistons last night.
Really?
So the Trailblazers drafted Isaiah Stewart, which was going to the Rockets, but that decision was already going to the Pistons.
Okay.
So I don't even know what I don't know what
I
the
was gonna
Rockets
say,
got out of it.
are the Rockets in a rebuild mode or are they not? Like, because Harden wants out. Westbrook
I mean,
wants
Covington's
out.
your third best guy. I mean, I don't
yeah,
see
I'm
why
not
you
sure that
moved him
Harden-
for.
I've seen some things that made me think that maybe the Harden thing was overblown, because first of all, he's posted stories with Russell Westbrook since this has all come out, and when the rumor came out that he said, "I don't care what you guys get back, just get me to Brooklyn," he posted a video of him taking the cap off a bottle, setting it down on the table, and zooming in on the cap. So I mean, it's a little cryptic, but I think he's saying, "That's cap." So I mean, only time will
Yeah.
tell what happens. I don't know if we'll ever know necessarily what the inside scoop is, but we'll see what happens.
And
And
you
that's all that
can't
really
work
matters.
out a James Harden trade to the Nets within like 24 hours. Like it was like Harden's first option to the Nets, and then I saw like literally like the next day it's a done deal pretty much. Like that was cap, because like with that contract, with the 2 other stars you have on the team and the assets that they have to give up, like that's not a one-day process. That's not a one-day process.
No.
Now,
And I was
Unless you
gonna say,
give them Kyrie.
It's a multiple team
unless you trade him
process, I
Kyrie,
think.
right? For example, like Harden to the Sixers for Ben Simmons, that's a much easier trade to pull off from the Sixers side. So we can see that that could come out of the works at any moment.
Sixers said they don't
But the
want to
Nets,
move on from Ben Simmons though.
That's because the
either.
Sixers are stupid.
Mm.
Just
That's
a fact.
also fair.
Yeah.
I mean James Harden, Joel Embiid, I don't know how they would mesh together.
At least one of them can shoot. That's all I have to say.
At
I think
least
if
they
you-
can space,
That's
at
fair.
least they can space the floor a little
If
bit.
you brought in James Harden and you were like, "Look, dude, you shouldn't be shooting 35 times a game. You should probably just try to get the best shot for the team." Right? And if you could get him to buy into that, he could. I mean, you've seen James Harden play as an unselfish point guard, averaging, what was he, like, top 5 in the league in assists, or did he maybe lead the league the year he played point guard?
I mean, I feel like
but-
like the past 5 years, he's been top 3 in scoring, most times number 1, and he's also been top 5 in assists.
So, I mean, you see him move the ball, and I don't know, I haven't watched him deeply enough to be like, oh, is it stat chasing, or is it him just being a good team player? But there was one year where we saw him be a very good team player all around, so.
Yeah, because he's so
He can do
offensively
it.
gifted. You throw 2 guys at him, and he automatically finds the open guy. And when that team was at its best, they had all shooters everywhere. So he would hit some guy in a 3-point line, and they would shoot it no matter what. Whether they shot 30%, 40%,
Oh, Westbrook will shoot it. No
center,
matter what.
point guard, whatever, they threw it up there. And with Harden's, he's like the really at some points he's really the offensive creator, and then as soon as he would draw 2 guys, he would dish it behind his back, over his head, through defense, bounce back between the legs. Like he was like when someone was open, he was there. He got it to them,
Yeah.
and that's the best version of James Harden.
Yeah.
I agree.
He's extremely skilled, and when we see him use it, his skill to its best, its full potential, we see him being unselfish and still scoring 30 points.
Yeah, I see him and KD working really well together, but Kyrie would have to be the third guy, so he'd be the third option, and that would
Yeah.
not be good.
That's not going to
Yeah.
set with.
I don't
Mr.
think you
I
wanna see
left
Kyrie
Cleveland-
Irving as a
I
third
left
guy.
Cleveland to be the top guy. I don't think that would work out too well.
No, then he left Boston to be the top guy, and then he literally left Boston and signed with Kevin Durant. So,
and
I
he
ho-
still thinks he's the top guy.
I hope he knows that Kevin Durant is better than him, even after Achilles injury.
I
But,
think Kevin Durant was better than him on one leg. Kevin Durant's probably the most versatile scorer in the NBA ever.
Yeah.
Just effortless scoring and just shoot over you. If you're not 7 feet tall like he is, it's just going in the basket. If he's within 20 feet, you might as well just shoot yourself in the leg and sit down because he's good.
Going on that same, I do think
yeah.
Harden and KD would be a much better duo in Brooklyn than Kyrie and KD.
Because Harden's
Yeah,
not
agreed.
fucking delusional.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it's not even that. It's just the unselfishness. Because Kyrie's just go dribble the ball for.
No, I know, 'cause
'cause
he's delusional.
And
Well, so would James Harden, but the outcome would be a lot better than Kyrie.
the outcome
Right,
is
'cause-
he's either going to pass it or he's going to score. With Kyrie,
Kyrie's
he's
gonna
be,
dribble
"Okay,
the
I'm gonna
ball
try and
for-
score.
Kyrie's going to dribble the ball for the entire clock and then shortly thereafter either shoot it or pass it to somebody or lose it or whatever. Whereas James Harden's going to dribble for 10 seconds and either, half the time he'll hit a step back three, half the time he'll miss it. And then, if there was 3 halves, the other half of the time he'd probably get the ball to KD. But, I mean, we've never seen him play with a player like KD since he played with KD, and that was a much different time in his career. We haven't seen him play with the closest we've seen him play with a star. I mean, Russell Westbrook probably isn't even as good as Chris Paul was when Chris Paul was there. The two
I
of
mean,
them
if
together.
you go back and watch James Harden's first season with the Rockets, it is mind-boggling how different his game was. It
yeah,
was
drastically
crazy.
different.
He was coming off screens, pick and pop mid-ranges. He was catching it, passing it, moving, setting a screen, catching off. It was insane. It was so much different than what he plays now, and I think.
Right.
And he still put up 25 points a game, which is scary because if he adapted to that play style in Brooklyn with those the other 2 guys, that could work, and that's scary because that's 80 points a game from 3 guys.
Right.
But all in all,
Yeah.
I think Kyrie, if that were to happen, Kyrie would cause cause
Yeah.
turmoil in the locker room. You know, they would lose one game out of 20 and be like, yeah, we need more pieces. You know what I mean? Like, he's just. I feel like if anything were to go wrong, it falls in the lap of Kyrie.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, Boston didn't work because Kyrie couldn't accept it. He was like, not the guy. He couldn't be the only guy. He was the guy, but he couldn't be the only guy. He had to chill.
Yeah, he knew. No, he knew Tatum was going to be better than him at some point.
It pissed him off, and he was like, "I'm out. See y'all later." Yeah. So in 2016,
And,
Harden averaged 11.2 assists and 29.1 points. For perspective, LeBron led the league in assists this year with 10.2, right? A whole assist a game less, and LeBron averaged like 27 points. I understand that Harden is not LeBron, but Harden also averaged 8 rebounds that season. That's a LeBron stat line,
Jesus.
but like a
Christ.
LeBron on like just a little bit of like test or like D-ball.
I think that's when he got
you
like
know?
30 triple doubles in one season. That was crazy.
Yeah, I think it was that year. He also
Was that
played.
his MVP season?
I think it was.
It was the
20
year
I
after
hope
Westbrook.
so.
Westbrook was 2017. I think Harden 2018.
So it was actually the year after that Harden won MVP. He averaged
Okay.
30 points,
Okay.
and 8.8 assists and 5.4 rebounds. I think Clint Capella might have showed up
One
and started
MVP.
playing, and then Harden averaged way less rebounds.
That's free.
He just had like one
What
breakout
is it?
season. Every other year he's been 6.5 or below, but then he was just 8 for 1 year for no good reason at all.
Like in terms of the Rockets, if they do plan on moving from both pieces, I think it's better to trade Harden now. If they trade him to the Nets, for example, a starting lineup of Westbrook, Dinwiddie, LeVert, some guy at the 4, and then Jared Allen. I think Westbrook would thrive with those players, and he would stat chase, put up numbers, probably miss the playoffs, or maybe sneak into the 8th seed. And then his value would be higher than it is now because his value is nothing. I mean, they've explored options. They would much rather trade Westbrook than Harden, but Westbrook is like just you can't get anything back for him right now.
The only team
Right.
I've seen
So-
interested in Westbrook currently is the New York Knicks, and like you can't get much back from them. Like win now wise.
Right.
You can get picks and stuff.
I
'cause
think-
Westbrook ain't carrying that team, I don't think. But
I think you keep Westbrook for another year, kind of play the long game in it, and then trade him next year when he has more value. But also
I agree. And he'll also
But
be
also next year's
content with
a
doing that for a year. I think.
next year the free agency is stacked. So who really knows? Westbrook is
Right.
kind of he's just he's getting old for his play style. That's all. I mean, it's really what it is.
Yeah. So,
What?
since this is about the draft, we should move on in a second, but I just want to make it known that Danny Green got traded from the Lakers. The Lakers sent Danny Green and a first-round pick to the Thunder for Dennis Schroeder. Probably going to start at point guard for them if LeBron doesn't. However that works, or whatever. He can kind of run whatever they need him to. He's a decent scorer. He can move the ball. He's skilled. And then shortly after that, the Thunder traded Danny Green for Al Horford and more draft picks from the 76ers.
I was gonna say
so-
OKC's go pick 1 through 60. I mean, one
Yeah,
of
I
these
think
years
they
coming
have
up here. They
16
seem to get a
between now
lot
and
of picks.
2026. After the draft
think
last
it's
night, I think they had
7.
16 first-round picks between now and 2026.
I think it's 17. I
It
think
was,
it's
but they just
17.
picked one last night. So now, after last night,
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
so
Yeah.
because I saw the stat after their pick last night, I think
Now they're down to
picked 10.
16.
gotcha.
Darn.
All right, so let's start with the draft. We'll start number 1. We'll go through maybe the first 5 or 10 picks, just kind of an overview of most of them, and then we'll maybe talk about a couple sleepers. So number 1, Anthony Edwards went to the Timberwolves. I wasn't surprised by this. I didn't really expect to see anybody else go number 1. With the way that the fit for the Timberwolves worked, I think that who is the most skilled player in the draft is a little bit of a different story, but I'll let you guys kind of work on that.
I thought LaMelo was going to go number 1 mainly because I thought the Timberwolves were going to trade that pick. I was honestly underwhelmed by the trades or by the NBA draft this time around because there was so much hype about moving pieces where and trading what
Mhm.
picks, and none of that happened. At least in the top, like at least in the lottery, there were no trades, literally no trades, which disappointed me because I was excited to see some trades, but it didn't end up happening. but I think Edwards is the best fit for the Timberwolves. He can be the third guy on offense, play decent defense. He can play off the ball better than LaMelo. They don't need Wiseman, of course, and there's no one else you pick within at the first pick besides those three. So I think it was a good option for them. I would have liked to see them trade the pick, maybe for like a borderline all-star tier player, and then whoever that is, draft LaMelo. But sorry, the Hornets got a steal. So
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the reason they didn't trade it is because, like, when you have the number 1 pick, you're so afraid to trade it because if you trade it for a borderline all-star, like, what's a guy for an example, right? Like,
Zach
Like-
Levine from the Bulls.
I was going to say Zach LaVine or, like, Jaylen Brown, a guy like that level. If you trade the number 1 pick for that, they're going to be like, dude, LaMelo Ball was in that draft. And, in 15 years, if LaMelo Ball's the best player in the NBA, they're going to be like,
Right.
LaMelo Ball was in that draft. So you're better off to just make a mistake in terms of who you pick in the draft over trading the pick for a dude who's like a borderline all-star that might average
Right.
20
Also,
points a
and
game.
like this draft is hard because, like I said, any one of those top 3 guys going number 1. Like last year, for example, we all knew who the number 1 pick was, and we all knew who the number 2 pick was.
Mhm.
It's like, they were both fit for the organization. With Zion going to, it didn't matter who got the first pick last year. They were going to draft him. It didn't matter
Right.
if they got 6
They're going
power
to have Zion
forwards.
because you can. Well, the thing is with Zion is I feel like you could move him to he can run. He's the height of a small forward anyway. So
Well,
He's
yeah,
just be-
Zion.
he's
you
the most athletic prospect probably in the
Yeah,
draft.
you draft
since, like,
Zion no matter
LeBron.
what. And
yeah,
then John Morant was
exactly.
like pretty much the clear-cut number 2.
Yeah.
But in this draft, there's no like real clear cut, and you got the Timberwolves and the Warriors, who the Timberwolves are playoff contenders, and you got the Warriors who may still be if Klay Thompson injury comes back.
playoff.
better-
Not
contenders.
quite as bad as
better-
we think, maybe.
Not quite as bad as we think
Or it comes back before
Then they could
playoffs,
be-
but we'll see.
in the championship contention. And I think the Warriors are getting ready to trade this pick. Like I had a strong feeling they're going to trade the pick, but I think that the Klay Thompson news on the same day, they're like, wait a minute, this could be serious.
It was like
Maybe.
within 2 hours of the draft.
Yeah,
Like,
it
the
was
news
within like
came
a couple
out.
hours before the draft, so I think they're like, hold on, I think we might need to draft someone here because next year might be another year of development.
Right.
So
And I think that I mean, Steph Curry's Steph Curry. He's going to do what he's going to do as long as he stays healthy. But I think that if they know, okay, we're not competing for a championship this year, they're much more likely to take a guy and be like, yeah, we can take a second-year guy to the finals. They did that with Harrison Barnes. I think he was in his 3rd year, the first year they went to the finals. And he didn't necessarily play the best, but they won. So I think they're like, okay, if we can take James Wiseman, he can be the Andrew Bogut, maybe even better. We've seen clips of his workouts. He looks pretty dynamic depending on, who you are. But there was big rumors of the Warriors trading back to 4 and also getting Wendell Carter Jr., which
I'd heard
if
of that. Yeah.
if Klay Thompson was going to be healthy, like if that injury didn't happen, I bet they would have pulled the trigger on that because you get a stretch 4, and then you also get probably a guy like you could get another defensive anchor like Onyeka Okongwu or at 4 you weren't going to get James Wiseman, but maybe a guy like a backup point guard or I heard they had serious interest in Denny Advia or whatever, the guy who went 9. But I think they made the right move for the news that they got and the situation they got put in that night. So
even I think if they traded down Obi Toppin would have been very good for them. He's a 4-year prospect. He's he's a lob threat, and he seems like a guy that knows basketball and knows hard work.
Right.
He didn't have any D1 scholarship offers going into his freshman year of college. I think he played for some Division III school, transferred, and then I think played for Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. So he knows what hard work is. He knows what it takes to compete, and I think that would have been a great fit for the Warriors.
he played for Dayton.
Unfortunately, at Dayton? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I think that would have been a good fit for them, but unfortunately they couldn't pull it off. But, you can't go wrong with James Wiseman.
He was
He's
a
like a little
sophomore.
better version of Obi Toppin and taller. So, but they could have got more from the pick if they traded it down and got Obi Toppins. That's just my
Yeah.
opinion on that.
I think you might be right. The only thing with selecting Obi Toppin is he's a power forward. He's pretty dynamic. He's athletic, like you said. He can shoot. He's a lob threat. So maybe maybe they don't even run him at the 4 because they have Andrew Wiggins, and maybe this year they'd run Andrew Wiggins at the 2 and Obi Toppin at the 3, and then if they got Wendell Carter Jr., he's at a kind of 4 or 5 position along with Draymond. I think it would have worked, but I don't know how they felt about that. Depending, yeah, I mean it's
That's fair.
tough because Wendell Carter Jr. isn't necessarily a center. Like he's not like Marquise Chris is a better anchor than Wendell Carter Jr. I think just in terms of athleticism. Like Marquise Chris ended up being a decent pickup for them. He a guy that can kind of jump out of the gym. He's a lob threat too. I think Wendell Carter Jr. would have been a good move, and then the number 4 pick, and you pick up who you pick up.
Right.
But
You pick
I
basically
mean,
whoever that isn't Lamelo, Wiseman, or Edwards. I mean,
right? Yeah. I mean, I know they were looking at Denny Avdia because he's a 6'9", 6'10", like shooting guard, small forward. So they were really interested in him because he kind of like fits their system. He's a big guy who can shoot the ball, and he plays smart. He played EuroLeague. You know how they like to move the ball. So I think they looked at him as like a not. I don't want to say Manu
Harrison Barnes,
Ginobili,
honestly.
but yeah, I don't want to say Manu Ginobili, but like he knew how to move the ball, and the guys from Europe, they know the game, they know the nuance, they know all that. So they like that about him. But I think they ended up making the best move with James Wiseman because he obviously has, I think the ceiling is the roof, as Michael Jordan would say.
Just for clarification, I said Harrison Barnes because he can be like that wing player. Not that he's from
Yeah.
overseas. I know Harrison Barnes from the.
No. I got you.
Yeah, like Harrison Barnes. Yeah, like I'm on Ginobili.
Yeah. No. He's got the third or fourth option maybe on the team, like Harrison Barnes was, the spot up guy, the pick and pop guy or whatever, size, and he's got size and ability. So we talked about the Warriors with James Wiseman. The most interesting pick of the draft, Jeffrey. I'll let you take this one. I know how you feel about this.
Yeah, the Hornets got an absolute steal in LaMelo. In my opinion, he was the number 1. I mean, I just stated that there was no clear number 1, but I think you don't look in any other direction because it wasn't so clear. I think LaMelo, you draft him because his build and his ability, you don't see that combination being 6'7", 6'8", being able to handle the ball. His perimeter shooting needs help, and he tore up the NBL in my opinion for averaging 18 points overseas. Like that's something that like doesn't really come about because like you said before, like they move the ball so well. It's less isolation. It's less give it to your best guy and go. It's more of like a team effort. And as we saw, like the NBL is not a joke that it was coming out to be. We saw RJ Hampton drop from like potential top 5 to end of the first round because he got. He got pretty beat up in that league, and he didn't really perform as well as people thought. And LaMelo thrived in that league, in my opinion. And also, I think the Hornets really wanted LaMelo. I think he was the number 1 option. And Michael Jordan coming out and stating that Edwards is better than him, stronger than him, this and that. Michael Jordan is one of the most competitive people that we know in the world. There's no way he's calling a 19-year-old better than he was. I don't believe that for a second. I think that was a smokescreen to get the Timberwolves or the Warriors to draft Edwards instead of LaMelo. I think you take a chance on LaMelo because he will put seats in the fans in the seats no matter how good he is. He could average 4 points and still put fans in the seats. So that's good for business.
Is he like a 6'9" point guard? How do you not go for that?
He's got the name. He's got the flashiness. He needs to commit more defensive end, which we all agree on. He needs to kind of learn how to play a little better, but his like initial reactions with his passes and his ball handling and his shooting, his shot selecting could use some work.
But he's so young.
But
he's 19.
all in all, I think he's going to be the best player. I think and he could put on 20, 30 more pounds, but he has the frame to do so. He has the frame to do so. I mean, like you see his dad, you see LaVar, you see LiAngelo, you even see Lonzo now. Like he's got the frame.
Lonzo's big
He's
now.
got the build. And I think that he will be the best player in this draft. Not saying that Edwards and Wiseman are going to be great contributors, but I think LaMelo is going to be above anyone else in this draft.
Right.
That's pretty much it. I think he's going to do great things. I think he's going to be better than Lonzo. Because I think he's just more. I think he's a little bit more gifted, and he's got a little bit more like hunger in his game than Lonzo. I feel like.
Yeah.
So.
He loves to play ball.
Very clever.
If you ask him in any interview.
Yep.
But the only thing I don't like about it, like I definitely do think he's the best player in the draft class as well. It's just that the Hornets, unfortunately, didn't luck out position-wise with the best player in the draft class being a point guard because they already have two guards that I thought at least they were trying to develop with Devonte Graham and Malik Monk.
Okay,
So
they
I
gave
don't
up
know
on
what
Malik
happens
Monk
to
a year
them.
ago, or like 2 or 3 years ago. And
Like, tell me this: what is Terry Rozier, Malik Monk, and Deontay Graham's ceiling? Like, what is their high?
I think
Like,
all of them
Well,
combined
Terry
is maybe
Rozier's
one
already
and
hit his. Terry Rozier ain't
Exactly.
getting better. I know that
well,
much.
Malik Monk has already hit his, and he's been in the league for like 2 years, 3 years. But
Yeah.
like, no. Like, answer this. Like, what do you think their ceiling is?
Also, Malik Monk's a 2, so that doesn't really make much sense.
Okay, so Graham is the best player out of the three. Like, what?
Yeah, I think he has potential to make All-Star. I think he could. He should have been
I think-
candidate for
okay.
he should have won Most Improved this year.
Right,
also
I do
thought,
agree with
but-
that.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I think he's good, right? But what I also think is that he went from not really having any sort of green light because they were working on Terry Rozier, like seeing what Terry Rozier could do as his first year, to being like, yeah, we suck. Go shoot the ball. And he went from like 2 points to 17. But you see guys, average that many points, like 25 points. That's like Andrew Wiggins has averaged 25, and people call him a bust. Like, averaging a certain amount of points in the game today doesn't mean a ton.
25.
Yeah, he averaged 25 once in Minnesota. Maybe more than once. 23, 25.
Tennessee. Wait, oh shit. Oh yeah, no, I remember that. But also, it's like Graham is empty stats. Empty stats.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I'm
yeah.
not trying to knock him at all, and I do agree with you. I think he should win Most Improved, but I think
Sorry, it's
that
23.6
those-
and it was 2017. So 24.
out of those three guards, I think their seal is the Melo floor.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
I mean, Graham may be an all-star. I don't necessarily agree with that take. I think once again he's like a good like 6-man role, especially on a competitive team. He'll probably start on the Hornets next year at like the 1 and the 2, and like him and LaMelo can play like combo guard and stuff. But I think that their ceiling is LaMelo's floor. So I think that like you disregard anybody on your line. Honestly, they're all kind of like not too relevant. And you implement Melo, and you try to build around him.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like the dudes on the Cavs when LeBron was drafted saying we already have guys better than him at his position. I don't give a damn who you got at his position. That's the best player in the draft. He's a generational talent. I'm not saying LaMelo's LeBron James, but it's a similar kind of thing. They're like, well, yeah, we got guys there. Doesn't matter who you got there, right? Like if you're at the 3rd pick and James Wiseman's the only one left, for example, I don't care if you have Bam Adebayo. You either take James Wiseman or you draft the damn pick, or you trade the damn pick. Because like you can't not take the only dude. Like this is a perfect example. You know what I mean? You can't not take the only dude left out of the clear-cut top 3 because after that it's a toss-up. We saw the Bulls be like.
I didn't think about that.
We saw the Bulls be like, oh shit, I don't know what to do with the 4th pick, and we can go over that in a
Patrick
second.
Williams.
We can go over that in a little bit, but we saw them be like, okay, the clear-cut top 3 is gone. We have no idea what the hell we're doing. We need defense. Oh, look, it's a defender. Let's pick him. So LaMelo was one of the 3 top clear-cut guys. Like it was going to be LaMelo, Wiseman, and Edwards, and the other 2 were gone. And they're like, I think it's who they wanted all along, Jeffrey. I think you're right. But they have no choice but to take him at that point. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah.
Right. and
I
the Hornets
agree.
have
Well, I
been-
didn't think
shit.
it was I didn't think it was a bad decision by the Hornets. I just think the situation that they now have going on there is a little. Just because you are developing young guards, there have been. Besides P.J. Washington, they haven't had any young players there that they've been developing.
Bridges is nice. Bridges is nice.
That's true.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, but so they developed that talent, but that talent's expendable. So yeah, so you trade Graham, Terry Rozier, you trade them and get like a wing player. I mean, like I don't think you go outside the top 3 in any scenario because of fit. Especially like with a player like LaMelo, it doesn't really matter about fit. Just draft the damn guy and figure out what you can do later. Like same thing. Like for example, like with the Brooklyn Nets, it's like trade for James Harden and figure out how to do it later. Just get the guys on your team and then figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
That's
a coaching
instead of like
problem.
yeah,
It's not a
right.
man
That's
problem.
coach's problem, not GM's problem.
And I hate
Well-
to be like, yeah, just send it off to the next guy. But that's the coach's problem to figure out. He gets paid to figure out how to run the rotations. You get him a
Right.
generational talent or I don't know about generational talent, but LaMelo's got stuff you can't teach. He's 6'7", according to the NBA's website. I've heard he's 6'8" or 6'9".
6'8" would choose.
Yeah, so he's obviously got to put on weight, but he's got the size and wingspan to be a defender
cutting
like
out.
Lonzo is. We've seen it. So
Right. He just needs he has the potential to be a great defender. He just needs to dedicate
Mhm.
himself. And I think
Exactly.
Michael Jordan being the head, the head of the team, kind of not like so much coaching and being on the floor. But
he
if Michael
practices
Jordan,
with the guys though sometimes. So
right, but if Michael Jordan tells you to step up on defense, you better respect that opinion or more of a
Mhm.
demand.
But what if LeVar beats him
Um,
1-on-1? Then does it change? Does power shift in Charlotte?
No, because LaMelo doesn't even listen to his dad anymore. I mean, he started his own
That's true.
clothing brand.
yeah, that is kind of
Yeah, he started his own clothing brand. That's what that was his brand logo on the back of his blazer and his chain.
Mm-hmm.
It's called La France.
How cute.
Oh, probably.
Because that's his middle name. I know way too much about this prospect. Moving on.
Yeah.
Chicago Bulls, losers of the draft. We don't know who Patrick Williams is. Next.
I've never heard of him.
Called
it's-
sixth man of the year, but that means that there's players on his own team that were better than him.
Right. I just don't understand the pick. And it's so Chicago Bulls, right? I guarantee they accidentally picked Michael Jordan. I think the commissioner read the wrong name. Straight up. I don't think they picked Michael Jordan because they've done nothing but mess up in the draft since then. It's just they got Derrick Rose,
I was
but
about to
that's
say,
like a
drafted Derrick
Zion.
Rose.
That's a Zion situation.
yeah,
He's the
Derrick Rose
consensus
fell
number
in
one
their lap.
pick. You have no choice but to take the consensus number one pick when it's the
And plus,
consensus number one pick.
Trust that draft was rigged anyways to get him. They were I think they had the 12th pick or something, and they're projected to get the 12th pick.
Same with Zion. They were supposed to get 9.
Yeah, well, we've discussed this before. That draft was also rigged to put fans in
Yeah.
the seats.
Do you think every draft is rigged?
Yes,
I think it's more common than you might think.
Yeah, because the NBA is a
Ewing?
business. Of course, they're gonna do everything in their power to increase sales. I mean,
It's not good to have some teams that are just awful.
right.
Like the Pelicans, they're in, their location. It's a crazy place to have a team, but their teams always sucked. They had Anthony Davis, and that had some promise, but they lost Anthony Davis. So
Well, they're more of a football city, anyways.
yeah,
They love their football, basketball not so
Right.
much.
yeah.
But now with Zion, you can see that basketball is starting to become and Lonzo too. So,
Right.
but okay, enough about that draft. Let's continue with this one. The Cavaliers, Isaac Okoro. Every time the Cavs
pick.
draft someone, they either lose them or they don't do shit. That's the Cavaliers culture. I don't know much about this kid.
He averaged 12 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists per game in college. He's a good athlete. He's 6'6", freshman at Auburn.
He's he's a good wing guy. He could mold out to be a
He
good
played
starter for
small
them, potential
forward there,
all-star. I
which
don't
he
really-
can still do.
He averaged 4 points and 1 assist on a U.S. team that won gold in 20 FIBA U17 European Championship. So woohoo. Yeah, basically he's gonna play off the ball and he's a good defender. 90th percentile in points allowed per one-on-one possession in college. So he's good. I mean,
It'll
not a
make
bad
up
pick.
For,
Given-
make up for
you know,
Garland
given
and
the
Sexton's
options-
defense as well.
given the options and what they already have on the team, because it's not a
Right.
situation where you're like, oh, I got to take this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they're going to trade Kevin Love, but you don't want to take a power forward. You don't want
Or
to
a
take
center.
right, and you can't take a center because
you
Andre
don't
Drummond's still
need
on contract.
guards. You have two.
And you got two guys.
Right, you
developing
got 2
guards.
guards,
So
so
this
you
is-
got to take the small forward. I mean,
So this is like a position fit, which is not a bad draft. I've seen him kind of be in with this top 5, top 8. So it's start with this selection. I think they were more smart than last year, but because they already got 2 guards as well, and there's plenty of good guards on the table. But I think Isaac Okoro is a safer pick at the number 5 for them. So
yeah, I agree. They don't need any more guards. They should really stop getting guards. It's like an addiction. So, Jeffrey, I know this one hurts you. Number 6, the Hawks took
Still-
Okongwu, Onyeka Okongwu. He
Celtics
played with
still have a
LaMelo.
chance of getting him.
Yeah, whatever. He played with LaMelo at
did.
Chino
He played with
Hills,
all
won
the Ball
3
brothers,
championships.
I think. Yeah.
He's a 6'9" power forward, lockdown paint defender. He's kind of an anchor down there. Above average wingspan. He weighs 245. He's a big dude.
Piece.
Come on.
Yeah, I think it's a great selection for the Hawks. I
Yeah.
completely forgot they have Clint Capella, but I think he fits, like their age range again. I think that he's a good because like the Hawks are
Yeah.
building something really nice down there. They got Trey Young, John Collins, who are
Yeah.
really gifted offensively, but don't really dedicate themselves to like the defensive end. Trey Young, if he want to dedicate himself, he's just like too small. And then
You have
John
Kevin
Collins, more
Herter,
of an offensive threat.
who's
And
developing
as
is
John
really good,
Collins,
too.
yeah, Kevin Hurt is a good piece. As John Collins extends, becomes more consistent shooter outside. You put a Kongu in the dunker spot for Trey Young to throw lobs to all day. That's gonna be really fun. And then you got him as a defensive anchor. I think you just move on from Clint Capella entirely. You didn't trade much to get him.
Right.
Trade him to a team that needs him, and then keep a Kongu.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that. I mean, I think this is a great pick by the Hawks. They're going young, and that's exactly what they should have done.
They have made a lot of good selections in the past couple of years.
They're doing.
I mean,
really
yeah,
well,
trading Luka
honestly.
for Trey Young, it still
That-
I bet it still hurts a little bit, but Trey Young is a
Mhm.
very very good player. I mean,
Well,
he
Trae
made the
Young's
all- he
proven
was-
to be a great basketball player. I
right,
mean, he's
right.
not.
He could be an MVP.
He's not as versatile as Luka Doncic because he's not as big, but he's an incredible scorer, just like Luka Doncic is. And I think that he's a better playmaker. Probably is more pure point guard. So I don't think it's a bad move for them for what they got going. They're both ball dominant guys, so it is what it is. Pistons, Killian Hayes. I mean, he's good, right?
Yeah, I think the Pistons were one of the winners.
That's
of
They're
about
this
all I
gonna
can
draft.
lose
say.
their
He's
starting
being-
point
I
guard
mean, he's good.
probably. I think they're probably gonna not have Derrick Rose next season, so I don't see why not. He's a 6'5" point guard.
Derrick Rose wants to dip.
6'5" with a near 6'8" wingspan. He's you can't teach size, right?
Right.
So he's a good defender. All things that you can't really teach. You can teach defense, but you can't teach wanting to play defense or being naturally gifted at defense. Like, it's something
Being
that you just
dedicated
don't want
on
to
the
have to
defensive
worry
end.
about. Yeah. Like, you don't want to have to worry about coaching a guy on, okay, you got to try. Like, it's just not what you
You gotta
want.
try. You gotta put a
And
little
correct me if
work,
I'm mistaken,
you know?
but he came from
Bend the
Australia
knees.
as well, right? Or was
Germany.
it Europe?
Germany.
Oh,
Germany's
Germany.
BBL. He
Okay.
was 50th in scoring, 13th in assists, 17th in steals, and played 25 minutes a game. So he averaged 11.6 points against grown men in 25 minutes. 85% from the line, 50% from the field. Pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I think that
Not a bad pickup, but I think it's a great pickup for Detroit.
he says that he likes Manu Ginobili and James Harden. That's what he's trying to model his game after. Like a point
Yeah, I
guard
think
who
he's
can
also a
score
lefty,
but also
right?
play for the team. I'm not positive. I don't know.
I
This
think
doesn't
he
say.
is a lefty, but
Yeah, this doesn't say. But
overall
no,
the
good pickup.
Pistons, they've been mediocre for a long time,
Really, for
since like
sure.
2004.
Mhm.
They
So
can't
I
seem to
think
get themselves over the hump, really, but they also don't fall.
no,
hard
they need
enough
to
for them
lower
to be the
themselves
worst.
to get up. You know what I mean? Like they need to
Yeah.
trade away, get in the
Griffin.
top 3 next year. And I think they're in the right direction. I mean, they drafted Killian Hayes and they traded for Isaiah Stewart. And they made one. Yeah, they traded for Sadiq Bey.
Oh yeah.
So he's on the
Sadiq
Pistons as
Bey.
well, and they have Soneku. They drafted like 2 years ago. He's turning into a pretty nice piece for them. Rose is gonna leave. They traded Luke Kennard, which is unfortunate. I don't know
Yeah,
if that was the
no.
right move or not,
I don't think it was.
but I have heard he's been like injury plagued throughout his career. So maybe that's why. And I think that all they have left to do is trade Blake Griffin. And then they're in a full rebuild
Yeah.
mode.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely
So-
agree.
I agree as well.
So yeah, starting to round out the top 10. The Knicks at 8 with Obi Toppin. Now, before you guys say anything, I want to say I like it. I like it because I watched Obi Toppin's reaction to being drafted by the Knicks. It was his lifelong dream realized. He's a New York kid. He's in love with the organization. That's where he wanted to be. He's a versatile 6'9" power forward. We talked about him a
You
little
don't
bit
come by that
earlier.
very often.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think he's good. He averaged 20 points, 7.5 rebounds and 2 assists per game. He shot like 40% from three. He's got a 6'10.5" wingspan. He's 220. A lob threat, which I don't know who's gonna throw them to him. But I don't know. I don't think this was a
RJ.
terrible move. I think that they were kind of concerned about. I don't know why they would be, but I don't know if they were concerned about like getting a point guard and then being like, okay, now I'm stuck with Julius Randle or Bobby Portis. But I think that this gives them an excuse to get rid of maybe not only one but both of those guys because they're both on pretty sizable contracts. Not that it really
not
means
worth-
anything for them to
they're- yeah,
have
they're
big
not
contracts
worth
because
what
nobody
they're
wants to
on.
go there. But maybe if Obi Toppin proves to be kind of a good player, I mean, Devin Booker went 13. You never know with any guy in the
Right.
draft, but especially in the top 15 picks. I
Yeah.
don't know. I see potential for this to be like everybody boos him, but it's a Porzingis type deal. You know what I mean? Which obviously didn't work out well for them because the management sucks and James Dolan is the worst. But
Yeah, like, I originally didn't like the selection. Not against Obi Toppins, but I didn't think it was what the Knicks needed. But after Trav kind of explained it to me, I do like the selection better. But I still think that they should have went with Tyrese Halliburton.
I agree. But
He's a good
I think
defensive point guard. He's a good playmaker. He's a solid point guard that can develop. I think he slipped in this draft mainly off of need.
Mhm.
Because let's see, going out of the top, going out of the top three. The Bulls, they have their guards, and Kobe White and Levine. Cavaliers have the guards. Hawks have their guards. Pistons drafted Killian Hayes, which I do believe should have went above Halliburton. And then I thought he would fall right there, number 8 to the Knicks, which they didn't. They went over Toppins, which is not a bad selection. Like you said before, I really didn't agree with it, and neither did Stephen A. If you guys watched that reaction, that shit was funny as hell. And then the Wizards obviously got their guards. Suns got their guards. I thought they might go to the Spurs, but the Spurs are pretty clogged in their backcourt as well. And then the Kings get him at number 12. I think he was definitely the sleeper of the draft. I think he has potential to be like a top 5 player coming out of this draft class. You look back at it 5, 6 years from now. But overall, not a bad selection by the Knicks. I think besides Tyrese Halliburton that he was the guy to draft. Yeah, it's just my opinion
Yeah.
on the Knicks
No,
pick.
I would agree with that. What do you think, Cody? Have you
I
you got any
think he
opinions
went
on
the
this
right
one?
spot. I mean, not too strongly. I really don't have opinions on too many of these guys until we
Yeah.
get to Miami because I don't strongly relate to these teams
Yeah.
personally. Cole Anthony, I guess I could talk about him. I think he should have gone up higher.
I don't think it's a bad thing that he slipped. I think it was another need-based thing. Because I think that Tyrese Halliburton and Kira Lewis both were more kind of surefire, like, okay, we saw what this person could do because Cole Anthony did get hurt. Cole Anthony is skilled, obviously. There's no doubt about that, but I don't. And then the Celtics, obviously, they went with a more sure thing, an incredible shooter. But I don't. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that he slipped. But let's just finish out this top 10, and then we can talk a little bit more about some guys that we have particular interest in. So, Denis Advia, I think is how you pronounce his name. I'll find out once he actually starts playing NBA basketball. Wizards took him at 9. This was a guy that, the Warriors were interested in because he's versatile. He's like 19. He's 19. 6'10", almost 6'9", 6 foot. I've heard both, but NBA has him at 6'9". It's probably 6'10" with shoes. Decent shooter, played overseas, 2-time Israeli League champion in 2018 and 2019. He led the European Championship, the 2017 U16 European Championship rebounds of 12.6. He's proven himself over there. High level of court intelligence. Let me read the strengths on NBA.com. High level of court intelligence and competitive spirit. Very smart and effective in pick and roll. Good cutter. Potential to be a reliable spot-up shooter. Great open court game and good for his size, or good size for his position, allowing him to play and guard multiple positions. All of those things are things that you want to see in a prospect.
He's just an all-around good player.
Yeah. He's
And I
not
think
like he's not going to shoot 50% from 3, and he's not going to throw it down on you, but he's just kind of intelligent. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and I think it's a good pick for the Wizards because I think they're open to. Actually, I think the only choice is to really run it back with John Wall and Bradley Beal and see what those two can do. And
Hmm.
I don't think, and they're kind of on the timeline here with John Wall and Beal, and I think this is the safest draft pick. Once again, I thought Obi Toppin would be a good pick for them. You can play him with Hachimura, but I
Yeah, Rui
think now
Hachimura.
since they drafted Denny, I'm not gonna try his last name. I think he's the most ready prospect out of the group. That
Yeah,
out of the 9 through 10, or that the 9 through 14, 9 through 15,
yeah.
and I think he's just gonna be a guy play off the ball with John Wall and Bradley Beal. I think it's a good selection for them.
Yeah, I think we see a lot of these European guys kind of come into the league, ready to play against adult men because they have been playing against adult men. Like, not to
Well, I
say
heard of this
Kristaps
guy named
Porzingis isn't.
Luca.
Yeah, well, he's still improving. Luka's incredible. But I just mean like they come into the league and they make an impact right away. And like Kristaps, they thought he was gonna be the best player in the league because he's 7'3" and could shoot, but like he might have hit his ceiling already because he gets injured a lot. And he's just not like he's Luka's number two. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
He's a great player, but he's probably never going to win an MVP. Stuff like that, But he came into the league having played, competitively against adults, and he realized his potential very fast. And I think that the Wizards like that in Denny. So the Suns drafted Jalen Smith at 10. This is kind of like it's not a very controversial pick. He's a power forward. He's 6'10".
Alright.
It fit a positional need, I think, more than anything.
I was gonna say he fits a positional need.
Because
That's it.
who do they run at the 3? Is it the Bridges kid?
They were running Kelly Oubre.
Yeah, they don't have him.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm saying, who are they gonna run? Because he's a
Who
6'10"
are
power
they now?
forward.
Probably Bridges.
I mean, he's 6'10" with a 7'2" wingspan.
Because you're gonna have Chris
So.
Paul, Devin Booker. You have DeAndre Ayton at the 5, so they'll probably run Bridges at the 3, and then Jalen Smith at the 4.
Yeah. So this guy, he was a sophomore this year in college, in Maryland. He averaged 15.5, 10.5 rebounds, and 2.3 blocks. And he second in the Big Ten in both rebounding and blocks. So obviously he's got potential. He's kind of a defender, and maybe that's them compensating for DeAndre Ayton's lack of defensive prowess. But I don't think that this is a super controversial pick. I don't think it'll change their franchise by any means, but you never know. Spurs got Devin Vassell at 11. I guess we don't need to keep the order. I don't know. I always trust the Spurs. So he's a 6'7" power forward. Seems decent enough. What do you want to?
Yeah, I just think that the Spurs made a smart decision. I don't know
Yeah.
anything about the kid, but I just know that the Spurs made a good draft pick.
Yeah. No, they always do. I really thought that they were going to take Tyrese Halliburton.
Hmm.
I know that they have Dejounte Murray still, right? Yeah.
And White, Derek White.
Derek White, right. They have both of those guys, but I don't know. I thought they were going to take him because, like, we haven't seen a lot out of those guys, and I don't know if that's... I mean, we've seen good, potential out of both of them. Like, Dejounte Murray is a great defender, for example, on the ball, or above average, at least. But I don't know. I think it was a good pick. I trust him. Let's go to... we talked about Cole Anthony already. He got injured. I think his slip was positional, kind of like a lot of guys. Like Tyrese Halliburton, he slipped at 12. Probably should have gone as early as maybe even 8, 9, 10.
LaMelo slipped to 3. Probably should have gone at 1.
Right, it's a positional thing.
Yeah.
But I know Cody wants to talk about this guy that the Heat picked that he's probably never heard of until last night.
Precious Oshua. I've heard of him before, actually. I think for guys that they need to develop, once again, he fits it perfectly. You have your Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn. There's your 1 through 3. You got Bam still. There's your 5. Here's the 4 for the future for Miami, I personally believe. I think he could start this year if they lose Jay Crowder. If not, I think Jay Crowder should start. I mean, that was a starting five that got you to the NBA Finals, so I wouldn't switch that up. But he's got some veteran talent that he could look up to in Miami to help forward development. They have good coaching staff there. If he fits the culture well, which I doubt the Heat drafted someone who they didn't think would fit the culture, he's a workhorse. He's athletic, good defensively.
Arguably the most athletic in the draft class, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
he was the only freshman who qualified that averaged a double-double this season.
yeah.
So
He'll.
no, I
I think
think
he
he's
fits.
good. Sounds good. Sounds like a very Miami Heat guy. The only concern I have is like having 2 6'9" big men that can't,
space the
consistently
floor too well.
pull it behind, step out behind the arc. This says he shows potential as a shooter, and Bam Adebayo also does, but I mean, I don't think they'll start them both. I think they'll run them interchangeably, at least until one of them shows the ability to maybe stretch the floor a little bit. But he is a very athletic player, and I think that's not really something he needs to work on. I think he'll probably put a lot of work in on his shooting. RJ Hampton, he went overseas just like LaMelo, and like Jeffrey said, LaMelo went overseas and increased his draft stock, and RJ Hampton slipped to 24th, and he's actually going to the Nuggets. He was first dealt to the Pelicans, but reportedly traded to the Nuggets afterward.
Now, I thought the Knicks were going to draft him at 23. I was excited for him to go to New York, and they ended up trading it to the Timberwolves for whatever they got, probably a second-round pick in 2025. I thought as they got closer, I'm like, okay, maybe they didn't draft a point guard because they might try to draft RJ Hampton. Literally, he was on the board, ready to go, and they traded it away. Now he's going to the Nuggets, where he's not going to play his first year.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of disappointment. I was high on RJ Hampton in high school. Unfortunately, like I said, his draft stock went down drastically. And I even think that I thought teams would have drafted him like late end of the lottery. Going down the draft where as we saw last year with Bol Bol. I mean, Bol Bol was the number. You know how like in the NBA draft they do the number one. Like the top 5 options for that draft pick.
Yeah.
RJ Hampton was number 1 for a while.
Yeah. He
And
was
they
the
kept
best
slipping
on the
him.
board.
Yeah. Bol Bol was best on the board for probably like 20 picks.
Mm-hmm. Same deal.
It wasn't like that, but RJ Hampton was definitely best on the board for a while. But once again, fit. Like Trailblazers, no. Timberwolves, well, they traded that pick. Mavericks don't need him. The Heat don't need him. The Sixers don't need him. The Nuggets thought didn't need them, but then they ended up trading for him. And then I thought the Knicks would need him. Perfect match. He could play. He could learn.
The Knicks
and then
are
all in
stupid.
all,
They had the perfect
But it's-
opportunity to make the Obi Toppin pick look like a good idea. You know what I
Right,
mean?
and it's-
Because they haven't had a
that's-
point guard in 3 decades. They need one.
Well, because they're
Bad.
their coach is Tom Thibodeau, and he doesn't like rookie players, so they go ahead and draft a 4-year prospect, and then they trade away their pick. Like Tom Thibodeau is not a good option for the Knicks.
Tom
you
Thibodeau
can
is a
see
good
it-
option
you
for
can
anybody. He's the reason that Derrick Rose's injuries have plagued him his
Jimmy
entire
Butler
career. He played him
liked him.
40 minutes a game. That's because Jimmy Butler doesn't mind playing 40 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Luol Deng played like 40 minutes a game.
But for a team
He
trying
works
to
him
rebuild,
ridiculously hard.
like Tom Thibodeau was not the guy, because like Obi Toppin's, like, yeah, okay, like you made me agree, like that is a good draft pick. But RJ Hampton was also a good draft pick,
Yeah.
and they didn't draft him because he's a rookie and because he's 19 years old or 20 years old.
Right. Yeah, I don't understand that. I really don't. I don't understand there being a potential, phenomenal pick, potential to be a real sleeper or a real late steal, and just not taking it as the Knicks. I don't understand. You're blatantly rebuilding. I don't know. So, real quick before we end it, who do you guys think the steal of the draft is? I want everybody to come up with their steal of the draft. I got mine.
Wait, what's up? You cut
I
out
got-
for me.
Steal of the draft?
Steal the draft.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
Look. I would say LaMelo, but I'm not.
While you guys are looking, I'll give you mine. Okay, so you might not agree, and I don't happen to care. Um,
I
at
might agree we
number
might get the same guy.
at number 41, Trey
Ooh,
Jones from Duke.
Oh,
He
yeah.
Yeah, he went 41 and to the Spurs, right? Yeah. So I think that's genius. I think the Spurs did it again in the second round. I think they got a significantly, a significantly kind of impactful player in the second round. He's 19 or 20. He's now 20. And as a sophomore, he averaged let's see, 16, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists, and earned ACC Player of the Year. He's 6'3", 190, 6'4" wingspan, so he's got decent enough size, pretty average size for a point guard, but he's got a decent amount of weight on his frame. He played 2 years at Duke, so I mean, you know how Duke is. He's a decent defender, supposedly, which surprised me, being Tyus Jones' brother, because Tyus Jones has kind of just been a liability, based on what I understand. But the Blue Devils, Duke, had a 26-5 record, and he played a big part in that. He scored 28 points against North Carolina. I just think this is a great pick. He's a good on-ball defender, a good ball handler. He's got, decent playmaking ability, and clearly he can score, averaging, above 15 points in college is pretty good. Not many people average way over 15 or 20 points a game in college. It's just not that kind of deal. It's not like the NBA where there's so much isolation and there's just less time in the game. You have to remember that. So that's my steal of the draft. Most definitely. I thought I was going to see him go in the first round, and he did not.
Yeah, no, one of those names are, one of the best selections in the first round for a while, and nobody picked him. It could be his size too, right? Isn't he pretty small?
He's 6'3" with a 6'4" wingspan, and
6'3"?
he's 190 too, so he's pretty sizable in terms of like weight. He's got good weight for his size. He's got decent size for a consensus small point guard. He's Steph Curry's size, probably bigger because Steph Curry's more like 6'1" or 6'2". But I mean, you think about it. Russell Westbrook's 6'3" or 6'4", and supposedly he's 200 pounds. So he's the same height as Russell Westbrook and 10 pounds less. So he's pretty rugged. He can hold his own, I think. He's not Russell Westbrook, but similar size frame. I think that'd be the comparison I'd probably give.
All right, Cody, you want to say yours or?
Yeah, I'm going with the 48th pick of Nico Mannion to Golden State, because I think he'll be a good backup point guard there. Personally, for getting him that late, I think he'll fit well in Golden State with his.
If I wasn't a Warriors fan, I would have actually put this in.
I think he.
And also being able to learn under Steph Curry.
Yeah, I agree with that, Cody. I think that's a good pick.
Out. I didn't mean to cut you off, but.
No, you're all good. Tyrese Halliburton, you're saying?
Yeah, Tyrese Halliburton. I think given the circumstances, I think he could have been a top 5 prospect. He's 6'5" with a 6'7" wingspan. He knows how to play the game. You can't teach height. And I just think he's just a unique prospect. I wish he was drafted to a team that needed a point guard, because I could see him potentially slipping into the Rookie of the Year conversation. But unfortunately, he's going to be like backup point guard for the Kings. So I don't know what much he's going to do, but later on in his career, I think we'll look back and he'll be one of the best players to come out of this draft. I kind of went a different direction than you guys.
Yeah,
you guys went the second round, but I think he slipped, and I think the Kings got a steal.
Yeah.
Whether they trade De'Aaron Fox, because I heard there's like turmoil there in Sacramento.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. I heard that they're worried about his potential to stay long term, as well as Buddy Hield.
Mm-hmm.
Buddy Hield wants out, and where did he say he wants to go?
I'm not
I think
sure.
Buddy Hield wants to go to Philadelphia, I believe.
I don't know. I remember hearing a rumor. I don't think it was Philadelphia that I heard, but that's
so if
fine.
they trade Hield, you could start Halliburton at the 2. Yeah, I think he's gonna be one of the best players out of this draft.
Yeah, I think we should also look at Kira Lewis Jr., because the 13th pick every year seems to be amazing. Seriously, Tyler Hero, Kobe, obviously, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell. These guys, it's like the 13th pick is blessed or something. So he led the Crimson Tide in scoring with 18.5 points, 5 assists, almost 2 steals. He played 37 minutes a game, so that's pretty crazy. But I think that he's got potential to be really good. It looks like that as of now. Second player in Alabama history to record a triple-double. He had 10, 10, and 13. 37 points and 7 assists against Georgia. I really think that he'll be good. He's not oversized or anything. He's pretty small. He's 6'3", 165, but you there?
Yeah,
we're here.
All right. So yeah, that's my secondary steal of the draft pick. That was my first round steal of the draft. So if you guys don't have anything else you want to say, any burning desires to get out there to the people, I think.
I do wish the Celtics traded their assets or their picks for a like a good veteran player. But I think the Aaron Naismith draft pick was a pretty good option. I would like to see a big, but there really was no real big at that position, or like at that point in the draft.
Yeah.
He shot 52% from 3 and made over 4 threes a game. I think that's what you need. And he's like a definition of a 3-and-D player. He's good on defense, and he shot over 50% from 3.
Mm-hmm.
Shooters normally have a little bit of a hard time transferring to the NBA because the 3-point line is it's farther back, and you have to work harder for your shots, and there's more up and down. But all in all, I think that's a great pick by the Celtics, and I think he's also a movable asset because someone who can 3-and-D 3-and-D players, they're like the most tradable asset because every team needs them. You can have 4 or 5 3-and-D players on a team and play them all at the same time.
Agreed. Yeah.
So
I like that.
I don't think that's a bad pick. I don't think he's sleeper, because I think they know what they're getting. Maybe someone who can come and knock down 2 threes in a game, play some defense, and move on from there. So.
Yeah, agreed. So, thank you guys for listening. If you made it this far, this is kind of a long one. There was a lot to get through. But if you did enjoy, feel free to like, subscribe, comment. Just comment rubbing alcohol if you made it this far, and hit the link in the description below to our Instagram. We're also gonna link. Jeffrey has a YouTube channel. J3 Jeffrey. He goes over all types of shoe content. I missed the drop this morning, but there's plenty more. So if you guys love hearing the sound of his voice and you're into shoes, definitely do that. So we'll catch you guys later. That's a wrap.